Well, hello guys. Today I am out here in the morning, outside in my perennial bed. And this perennial bed I do slightly different. I thought it'd be fun to take you all along for the ride here and see what we're gonna do. We're gonna get it ready. I have my coffee because it's still a little cool, but we've been having days 50 degrees, 60 degrees consecutively for 5 days at least, which means the insects are waking up and they are coming out of all of these leaves and all this foliage from last year. I try to keep it on until we stay warm enough that I know all the pollinators and insects are coming out of their homes from the winter so I can start cleaning up the beds. And we have been warm enough now for quite a while, and I'm gonna start cleaning up the bed. Now, as you can see, over the winter, we have leaves that drop in here. We have the foliage from these arborensis hydrangeas. We have foliage from, there's salvia here, and there's all these things. And the thing is, I do this bed a little bit different. So when you want to think of a compost, you think of all this leaf matter, you think of all this foliage. So what I do is I cut off some of the harder items like these hydrangea, and I will cut these off. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my push mower and I'm gonna mow and mulch a lot of this foliage just up back into a compost pretty much, so it can compost back into the ground. It's a great way to kind of have a more natural approach to a perennial bed. That's why this perennial bed, I pretty much put everything in other than the boxwood and the arborvitae. I put it in so it can all just die back to the ground every year and be chopped off at the ground, mulched up, and I don't have to worry about it from there. We are also going to, later on, we're going to fertilize the boxwood and the arborvitae. Those are two evergreens that you fertilize differently than a lot of other evergreens. So I thought it'd be really good to later on talk about what we're gonna do to fertilize those with plant tone, because they do not like acidic fertilizer like other evergreens do. So to start, usually what I do is I take just my shears here, and I take my basket in case I need to weed, because the thing is, we're in Iowa, and guess what? We sometimes have pretty easy winters. We can, and weeds still seem to grow throughout the winter. So what I also do while I'm going around is I make sure to get out the weeds I can this time of year, because if you can get a jump start on weeds now, you're gonna be much better off later on in the year. So that's why when I see that grass has kind of jumped over the edging I have here, I will go in and I will take out my grass. Any weeds, every time I'm outside, my dog Kip is gonna be with me. So he runs in and out, he says hi, he likes to explore, and you know what? I let him. So what I'm gonna start by doing is taking out any weeds and then chopping off these hydrangeas. These are arborensis hydrangeas, so I chop these off down to a few inches from the ground, honestly, and you can see that it's all the way down. And the reason I'm chopping these off is my push mower is not going to be able to get the stockiness. These are gonna be too much for it. So these I wanna chop down and then be able to go around it with the mower so I can mulch up all these things. Obviously, this will not work in any perennial bed, but it's a great method if you can get started on a perennial bed like this and have one that you can chop down. It's just a great natural way. I'm also, now that I have the hydrangeas done, there's about 5 of those hydrangeas right here, which during the summer are beautiful. They are a more upright hydrangea, but they give you that big, beautiful, full head. I love this hydrangea. They are the Bar Harbor series, and they look so good here. But what I'm also doing after I cut those down is cutting down some of the really stocky perennials. So I have Joe Pye that are behind the hydrangea. This is a table I put a lot of my agave and aloe on. So Joe Pye line right behind it. And then I have lots of allium in this bed. I love to leave this foliage over the winter because it just adds some interest. It gives it a little bit of movement in this bed. Well, it has something to look at other than just brown if we don't have snow. But I am gonna chop some of this off, and then we're gonna take the mower and just chop all this up. But when they're stockier, taller items like that, I like to chop them off quickly with my nippers just to make sure I can get them down to the ground where the mower will be able to catch them. And then I have the mower set on a high setting and we'll be able just to go over all this. So this is all beautiful beginnings of compost. We have beautiful leaves. We have all this green foliage that died back. And that is the beginning of what you want to use on compost. And the best thing for compost is to mulch things down to small particles so they can really work into a compost and become part of the soil. So this will all just add organic matter back to the soil. So I'm going to continue chopping some bigger things and then we're going to start mowing. So I'm gonna start my mower. I have it set on the highest setting, and as you can see, it's hopefully gonna be able to glide over most of the perennials. Perennials in general, they like to die back to the ground. So you wanna do this before they start pushing out all their new growth. So that's why I'm doing it while they're just beginning to come out of dormancy. I can see way at the bases, which you can get in here and see. Come look at this. If you look way at the base of some of these plants, see how there's a little green starting to show? It looks like grass because this is an allium, but it's not. This is actually green growth coming. So if we at this point are able to chop them off, then we'll be able to actually get them growing and have all that compost go into it. So I'm gonna start my mower and we'll get going. I'm just going around grabbing up a couple of the big sticks that the mower isn't able to actually grind up, mostly the ones from the hydrangea that I missed getting before. So I'm gonna let you know, I know this is unconventional, but what I love about this method is we're used to what in the spring? We are used to going out, clearing all the foliage, all the leaves out of beds, showing bare ground, maybe putting some wood mulch on it, and making them look clean, tidy, and proper. Well, this is a different type of perennial bed. These perennials, the sages, the salvias, the allium, they are all gonna get really big. But all that foliage from last year that died back is amazing material for compost to go back into this ground. It's great organic material. So I like to mulch it up, leave it on this bed, and you know what? In a couple months when you guys check back, this is going to be full of green growth, overflowing. You will see none of this mulch underneath or whatever you want to call this. Instead, you're just going to see beautiful blooms, beautiful green, lush growth, and you're going to have really healthy soil. And that's the important part. We want to build the health of the soil. So now what we're going to do is help the health of some of the evergreens here. Now, with most evergreens, I would usually use evergreen tone or an evergreen fertilizer. But what's different here is arborvitae and boxwood, like I have in this bed, do not like acidic fertilizers. They are the one evergreen that is slightly different. So for those, we just use plant tone. And this is just, to me, it's a great practice to start to get into. It's not that, it doesn't burn the plants. It doesn't do anything other than just help them. It gives them some good organic product to help them get back into what they need. So what I do is you just measure the diameter of a tree and then it tells you how much to add. So this is, to me, a great time of year before all this foliage is coming back to go around and add it at the drip line of the tree. Now, you can also rake it in, of course. But what this does, look at how beautiful this is. It is just a great organic product, and that's why I love to use it. Because I don't like to put synthetic fertilizers. A lot of times synthetic fertilizers, they act as what? A steroid. They don't really do anything other than give a jolt of energy. I want to give something organic that will feed it and help it do well over time. So I'm going to do this to my arborvitae and to my boxwood. Now, they're, like I said, they're kind of the two outliers in the evergreen world. Otherwise, a lot of times I'll use the evergreen fertilizer, but for these, I just use this. Now you just put it around the drip line, and then I will sometimes work it in with a rake or just let the rain naturally work it in. And the wonderful thing is, this time of year, you can easily see around all the plants and you can easily get it to the drip line. When this foliage starts growing here later on, it's really hard to get in here. So it's best to do it right now. So I'm gonna continue fertilizing, then we'll tidy up and clean up, but I do need some more coffee first. Guys, you have to enjoy working in the garden. You have to find time to do things you love, clean up, because in a few months, it's just gonna all be glorious and beautiful. Okay, I have everything fertilized. This is just a great time of year to start thinking about the upcoming season. The growth hasn't started yet, so we can go in, clean up, use best practice where available. If you don't want to mulch up, obviously, your growth from last year onto your bed, put it into your compost pile. You could put fresh, beautiful wood mulch, but don't just pile the mulch on every year. Rake up the mulch you have if you need to and freshen it up. Piled mulch isn't good either. It just is a festering ground for lots of insects. You want just 1 to 2 inches of mulch. But this now will work back into the ground. I have the evergreens, the boxwood, the arborvitae, they're fertilized. That will slowly work in over the next couple months here in spring. I'll fertilize them again here in late fall. You know, all these things, I think gardening sometimes we feel like we have to do everything or nothing. You gotta do what works for you. You have to find what you have time for and what you're gonna enjoy. And these little bits and pieces along the way, all at once are gonna get you to having a beautiful garden. That's what matters. So I'm gonna keep fertilizing. I have a few evergreens at other places too. And then I'm gonna enjoy some more coffee. Hope you do too.